Go.
Hi everyone, Ageless Al here. This is our second video installment of our little series about how I improved my health. As a reminder, 4.5 years ago I started on this journey, and I used diet and exercise to overcome a number of physical ailments. Recovering from auto accidents that I had was what motivated me to start this, but I also was already on acid reflux medication, high blood pressure medication, back pain medication. Some of that medication included narcotics when I had really bad episodes with it. And I also was diagnosed with diabetes. I had type 2 diabetes. My A1C was in the diabetic range, unfortunately, right after the second auto accident when I got checked out by my doctor. So I really wanted to get off of that medication as well as the other ones that I was already on, so that I would hopefully save and not rot out my internal organs, liver, spleen, kidneys, things like that.
As we already discussed, you're down to one left.
So I'm still taking a low dose of Lyrica at night before bedtime. I've been slowly working off of the medication for that because I had neuropathy in my feet.
Yeah, you come a long way.
That was a symptom of the diabetes, unfortunately, which kicked in right after the diagnosis. I didn't really have it yet, but then it started happening after the diagnosis happened. So for the first year or so...
Ageless Al, episode 1, the phantom foot pain.
Yeah, between spring of 2014 and 2015, that year's time span, my feet really started becoming a real problem. I was taking gabapentin for a long time, and I was taking larger and larger doses of it, and it really wasn't helping me. And it was making me dizzy and disoriented and sleepy, in addition to not really addressing the problem. So I was able to switch to Lyrica, which helped better, but I was still taking like 300 milligram pills every day, and now down to 175 milligram pill before bed. So I've done a lot to improve on it. It's still there, but it's now reached a point where it's more of a nuisance, and I don't pay any attention to it during the day. So it's slowly healing, but nerves heal slowly.
Well, of course.
You don't want to wait until you get to the point, though, where that starts to happen before you take action.
Yeah, because then most of the damage is going to be irreversible.
And it can be. Most times, this stuff doesn't really go away. Before the neuropathy kicked in, I had another problem where my ankles, my shins, were literally turning various shades of stained dark
yeah, if you look
blood.
closely, viewers,
there's still a little bit left in the left shin. It's mostly all gone in the right.
Yeah.
But both of them were really bad there for a while, and it looked like a bad sunburn on both shins.
Yeah, it looked really nasty.
You see that in older, heavy people, and it's usually a circulatory issue, but they weren't swollen, they didn't hurt, they didn't itch or anything, but they were just getting discolored. And the doctor explained to me that was, again, a diabetic thing. What was happening, and if you understand how type 2 diabetes works, you become insulin resistant. That means that the sugar's not getting out of the blood and into your cells because your cells don't want that added sugar. They're pushing
they can't
back.
handle it.
They can't handle the extra load because you're not burning it. So they become insulin resistant. As a result, the sugar doesn't penetrate into the cell walls. It floats around in your blood. Sugar is a crystal, and over time,
it
was starting to tear the little tiny capillaries that were near the skin, and I was literally bleeding out into my ankles.
Yeah, that sounds painful just to think about.
And about a year or so into this process, I went through a routine eye exam, and they thought they saw something suspicious, and sure enough, I had a retina or a blood vessel near the retina that was now hemorrhaging.
Ooh.
And that was, of course, much more serious, or could have been, than the ankle issue was. Now, as I continued to work out and lose weight and get in better shape, this eventually cleared up. It was in the right eye. And I didn't suffer any loss of vision. It was fortunately in a fairly unimportant part of the back of the eyeball, where it didn't directly impact my vision.
Well, that's good.
So I've been clean with that for the last, say, 2.5 years or so. But it is still another facet of damage that can result from diabetes. Left to its extreme, you start having more severe damage to your internal organs or to your extremities. Often results in amputations and removals of things. I didn't want to go there. The medications themselves are bad for your internal organs, and I wanted to get off of all of that for that reason alone. And I didn't want to age as fast as I was aging. I was aging too fast. I wanted to slow it down or reverse it if possible. So as I started this whole journey, I signed up with a personal trainer. I had a complimentary visit with my local gym, Cornerstone Fitness. They walked me through various things that I should consider trying to do. And then I decided to sign up for a 10-pack of these visits. So each one would be an hour in duration. And I worked with two different trainers. One was a little more focused on building strength and core strength in particular, and the other one was a little more focused on balance and some other exercises that I wanted to do, or that they suggested I do. So after that, I felt like I could do things on my own. I did learn some hints from a couple of other folks that were regulars at the gym. So in terms of who I want to thank, first of all, I guess, thank the doctor who suggested I do this, beyond just going through the physical therapy to recover from my back injuries from the car accidents.
Yeah.
But also the two trainers I worked with at Cornerstone. Morgan was one of them. She was excellent, and so was Sean. I worked with those two, so they helped me quite a bit in terms of getting started. Trader Rob, one of my buddies there, he showed me an enormous number of exercises, probably more than I can remember how to even demonstrate myself in this video series. But he's been a big help. He also helped me with cardio training, because I was doing a little cardio usually about 10 or 15 minutes before I lifted weights, and I learned from him that I should save that for the end, save my blood sugar for the weightlifting, and then what was left I could then burn off through the cardio. And I also was introduced to something called interval cardio, and we'll demonstrate that in one of our video segments. That really helped bring the excess fat off of me. So I want to thank Trader Rob for helping me a lot with that. There were other folks that I learned tips from here and there at the gym. I also changed my diet. I didn't have a bad diet necessarily, but I ate too much. And I ate too many carbs and too many things with sugar in them. And that's what ultimately contributed to what kicked off the diabetes. I was 250 pounds, I was too heavy, and I wasn't really backing off on the foods that I shouldn't have been eating. So I went to a dietitian through Doylestown Hospital. She recommended a number of things that I should do. She said, your diet's not bad, but you should chop this off and chop that off. So I cut back on the sugar quite a bit, cut back on certain carbohydrates, limited those, focused more on vegetables, lean protein. That worked pretty well for a while, but I got to a point after about 3 years, or almost reaching the 3-year mark, where I still hadn't really gotten my A1C reading out of the pre-diabetic range and into the normal range, and I wanted to get there. So I was hovering between like 6.0 and 5.9 from an A1C reading perspective. Not bad, but still not 5.7 or lower, which is what the normal range is.
Right.
My wife, Maureen, was looking for an alternative to knee replacement surgery. She had had one knee replaced 2 summers ago. I think it was the right one. And the left one was going to be a candidate the following year. So she was hoping to avoid having to do that. So she looked into some alternative therapies, found an outfit that did stem cell treatment. So we explored that, but at the same time we also found out that the same outfit that did that service also was a Help Your Diabetes affiliate. Help Your Diabetes is a program that I was very interested in because I was trying to get down into that normal A1C range. So I went to one of their presentations and learned that they had a program that was a little more restrictive from a dietary perspective, and they had supplements that they recommended that you take that were specific for type 2 diabetics, and they had a pretty good track record of people getting off of their medications and getting into the normal ranges again. So I signed up with them. It wasn't the cheapest thing in the world, I will admit that, but I also wanted to get off of that medication, and I was just struggling with trying to get past that 5.9, 6.0 range.
Well, you did the right thing.
So I committed to it. So I highly recommend it. The keys are they send you meal plans every week. They have a focus group that you can get in with that meets regularly every Saturday, I think it is, where you get to talk to people that are going through the same process that you are. And they discuss things that are working or not working so well, so you get to share information. The keys for me, though, was the diet more than anything else. The stuff that the dietitian told me was good, but it wasn't good enough. The Help Your Diabetes folks said no caffeine whatsoever. That means no coffee, no tea, nothing with caffeine in it. I already wasn't drinking any soda. I had eliminated that. So
Yeah, I rarely drink
way.
caffeine, so.
No dairy. No, I'm allergic to dairy food, so that wasn't a problem either.
So am I, so I got that
And the
covered.
third big give up was grains. So that means no corn, no wheat, no rice, no barley, no oats, none of that. And the reason is those very quickly get converted into sugar into your bloodstream when you digest them. There are other carbohydrates that are more complex that take longer to break down, and they don't give you those big sugar spikes.
All right, what about soy?
Well, soy is a bean. So you can eat some, but you got to be careful with soy because it's very processed.
I guess I'm just saying my diet is much more restrictive than yours.
Yeah,
so.
and soy's not good for older men with their prostates. It's also a crop that is has a lot of genetic mutations or genetic engineering done to it. So it's got herbicides and pesticides used a lot on it. We have that same issue with corn. There's a lot of backlash with non-GMO products now in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So you go to the supermarket, they almost have a gluten-free aisle, and a lot of the non-GMO stuff is in there. So soy is something you got to be careful with.
All right.
But I started limiting myself to nuts, beans, vegetables for carbohydrates. A little bit of sweet potato now and then.
It's not going to kill you.
Wasn't going to kill me. I pretty much eliminated desserts other than dark chocolate covered strawberries. That's about the only one I eat.
Yeah, those are really good.
Dole Dippers, that's the brand name. I like those. But they're only like 4 grams of sugar in a pack, so that's not too bad. And I've added some supplements. We'll talk about them a little bit when we do a future segment. And within about 3 or 4 months, my A1C finally dropped down to 5.6. Then it went down to 5.5. So then we decided to back off on the medication, which I was already slowly reducing anyway. And then we tried no medication at all for 3 months.
So how'd that go?
Did another A1C, I checked in at 5.6. So it went up one little tick, but I was still in the normal range without medication. So that was a year ago, October. So we're now about 15 months past that point, and I've been essentially a recovered diabetic since that time.
Well, good for you.
So other than that little low dose of Lyrica, everything else is gone. I don't take anything for the acid reflux. That was the thing that went away first. I had the acid reflux because I had what they call a sliding hiatal hernia. The valve at the bottom of the esophagus normally sits just below the diaphragm, but in a lot of people, especially as they age, that becomes detached, and that valve will slide up above the diaphragm, and because the diaphragm's not there to help close that off, it stayed partially open and allowed the acid to percolate up my esophagus. It was especially troublesome when I would try to lay down or sleep. Sometimes I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I could feel it boiling up right into my mouth.
Yeah, you complained about that on multiple occasions.
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. So within about 6 to 7 months, that went away, and I was already reducing the acid effects I was taking because my doctor had said, people that have been taking these kinds of proton pump inhibitors, which is what that is, they experience a depletion of calcium out of their bones. Their body literally starts to decalcify because that stuff prevents calcium absorption in the body from the food you digest. So there was already some backlash about that, so I'd already cut my dosage in half by that point. But all of a sudden I realized I don't need this at all. So I completely weaned myself off of it, and I've been off of that medication now for almost 4 years. I've had no incidences whatsoever, and the reason, more than anything else, I really believe is that I've strengthened my core so much. A lot of the focus that I'm going to cover on these video segments is going to be all about core. Strengthening your core, strengthening your abdominals. So it's done 2 things for me. One, it's gotten rid of the acid reflux. The hiatal hernia is probably still there, but
it's probably always going to be there.
The valve stays below the diaphragm, and I don't have the boil up of acid anymore. But it has also solidified my trunk of my body, makes it a lot easier to do some of the exercises that you're going to see demonstrated, and it's taken the pressure off of my spine. I still have arthritis in my spine from one end of it to the other. I've had a history of herniated discs. I herniated a disc between L4 and L5 in the lumbar spine.
Yeah, both sides of my family have histories of back pains.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's sort of a genetic thing in my father's side of the family, and in Christopher, and unfortunately in your side of the family with Mom's family too.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to watch out for that.
So something you have to watch out for. But In spite of the herniated disc there, I had 2 in the neck in the early, probably about 10 years ago that I had to deal with. That wasn't pleasant either. That was between C5 and 6 and 6 and 7, a little bit more on the left side than the right. But it was all because the spine was starting to compress, the arthritis was starting to kick in, I wasn't really in shape, and my core wasn't strong. So my spine was having to carry most of the load, and it was putting more and more pressure on the discs. They were compressing, flattening out, and putting pressure on the various nerve roots. I was getting spurs on the ends of my vertebrae, and this all was revealed in x-rays that were taken. So none of that was pleasant. I've been dealing with a sore back or back issues ever since my early 20s when I really got into volleyball big time. Volleyball's not easy on your back. Neither is golf, and there's a number of other things. At one point, I was even advised to stop doing squats and deadlifts in my mid-30s because of the lumbar herniation that I had. So I had to give that up for a while. It's only in the last year or so that I started to get back into some of that, but doing it at lower weights. So these are all common ailments, though. I run into people at the gym all the time that have back issues. I run into a lot of folks at the gym who were a lot heavier even than I was, that are diabetic, have high blood pressure. They're trying to get those under control. But mostly what I wanted to do was not just control them or manage them, because that usually implies you're still on drugs. I wanted to be off the drugs entirely.
And now you are.
So that was my motivation.
Well, almost.
So I'm hoping this year, 2019, I eliminate the Lyrica entirely. I'm very close, so hopefully maybe by springtime I'll try going without it entirely, and we'll see how I do. But at least I'm at a point now where I'm not in. What's the matter?
Sorry, the recording kind of cut off. Go ahead.
Oh, so you were running out of power, or what?
No, I opened another app. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure we got that last bit of the segment, but I'm trying to get rid of the Lyrica, as I said before. Hopefully by springtime I'll be off of it, and I want to be at a point where I don't have to think about any of those ailments ever again.
Right.
So I'm going to continue to do what I do at the gym. I'll continue to improve my strength. I'm stronger now than I was when I was in my 20s and 30s. So that's a good thing. Most people who look at me don't have any clue that I'm 62. They think I'm maybe 49, 50, 51, something like that. So that's where I earned the nickname Ageless Al. So that's the name I'm going to use for the rest of this segment. And got to have a little fun with this kind of stuff, right?
Well, yeah.
So that's kind of the journey that I've taken in terms of where I was in my 20s and 30s playing sports. I was, in shape then, but got out of shape through my 40s and 50s. The auto accidents I had in the spring of 2014 kind of forced the issue, but I also realized that I wanted to be off the medications. I didn't want to experience amputations and other complications from those diseases.
Well, no one
from
does.
the medications. So that was my motivation. The one thing I can't teach anybody, unfortunately, and I wish I could, is the resolve to first attack this and then stick with it. So many people will realize they're out of shape, overweight, have these medical issues, and they want to tackle them, but they don't have the wherewithal to keep going. Sometimes it's tough just to get started, and then when they do start, it kind of peters out. They don't stick with it. For me, I wanted to stay in shape to be around to see you as you get older, Christopher.
Yeah.
And also, I'm a model railroader. I want to be able to climb under the model railroad layout and not grunt and groan and creak as I'm trying to get out from under it.
Yeah, he's got an entire unfinished model railroad area in the basement.
Yeah, and I belong to a model railroad club, too. In fact, the picture I showed in my first installment was taken with my club shirt on, Chelton Hills Club in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania. So that's my story in terms of where I was, where I want to go. I'm also considering becoming a personal trainer. A lot of people have suggested I should do that. So at some point I will try to make that official. Maybe that'll happen this spring. We'll see how that goes. Maybe do that as sort of a part-time job in retirement. So that's the end of this particular installment. Other than for me to mention that, again, the core is the key. We're
Right.
going to spend more time probably on that in terms of the other segments than anything else, because that's what gives you the stability to stand upright, to avoid the back pain, take the pressure off the spine, and allows you to do some pretty amazing things in terms of lifting weights or doing other things in your life without having back pain complications. You'll see one of the early segments here. I'm doing over 900 pounds on the leg press. Christopher's filming, and I got 2 guys spotting me on that machine. I couldn't even have begun to think about doing half that much if my core wasn't strong.
And now you're doing that without thinking at all.
So now I do it. I don't even have the spotters now. I'm hitting 900 pounds, and I don't need spotters anymore. At some point, I'll probably do 1,000 pounds on that thing.
Yeah, I'm going to film that.
So you'll film that when we're ready. We'll probably save that one for the end.
Yeah.
So that's the end of this installment. For the next one, we'll talk about diet a little bit.
Okay.
Thanks.